All right. Well, I have 8:01, so let's jump in. Welcome. I'm so excited to see you all for today's Globe Observer Connect conversation. I have been looking forward to this one for months now because I think the project that we're talking about tonight is a really, really fascinating one. And I've just really enjoyed watching it from a distance. So, as you read in our description, tonight we'll be talking to Callie Davis, who this summer completed an internship with Dixie National Forest, where she used Globe Observer to document change. And I'll let her tell you all about it. Before we get started, I do want to make sure you're all aware that we are recording this meeting for folks who cannot join us right now. So if you're uncomfortable with your voice or face being seen, you feel free to stay muted and stay off camera, and you can put your questions in the chat. And so you can join the conversation that way. So without further ado, I will hand off to Callie to tell us about her experience recreating a series of landscape photos to track land cover change or land change generally in the forest. Callie, all yours.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, so for my internship this summer, I was on the Cedar District down on the Dixie National Forest. And I went around recreating photos that had been taken about 27 years ago. And I recreated those images and I documented the change that had happened to the landscape over time. Mostly, I was documenting bark beetle change, fires, logging, some erosion here and there. But the process for that was I'd go out, I'd follow the GPS points that had previously been recorded, and then I would go out and take these photos, usually north, east, south, and west, and I would record them either on Globe Observer or on Survey 123 for the Forest Service. And that was really the extent of my internship. And that was what I did all summer, just driving around taking photos.
Did you have well, I have a few questions. Is there a favorite moment that you want to share? Like something that really stands out?
Yeah, for sure. Favorite moment? I think the whole thing was really fun. Being able to just travel around the forest and see, especially on the Dixie, there's a lot of different landscapes throughout. You've got the red rock, and then you've just got pines everywhere as well. But you can also get into some sagebrush, and there's also lakes spread throughout. So I had a really good time being able to document all those changes that had occurred over it.
And what was you mentioned some of the changes that you saw with bark beetle. What were again, what stands out? Like what were some of the biggest changes that you noticed?
The biggest change with bark beetle, if you look back at the original photos, you can see that there was already bark beetle damage occurring. And then as we now, 27 years later, there was a lot more bark beetle damage. And you could also see where they had gone through and logged as well, most of those areas. And then for like fires, there was the Bryan Head fire, and that took a large chunk of the forest on the Cedar District as well.
Yeah, I noticed in your photos and on the Globe Observer visualization system, I could go look at your photos and kind of see see all the cool things you were doing. And that was one of the things I noticed too. There was a lot of burn scar that you were documenting. Let's see. I'm gonna see if anybody else has questions. I have more I could ask, but I'll see if anyone else wants to chime in.
Well, Holly, I wonder if, since we're talking about the images, if it's worth pulling up the blog. I have it open, or Callie, if you want to, and sort of just talking through some of the changes via the pictures. Do you want me to share my screen, Callie, and I can just scroll down?
That would be great.
So we can see a very nice picture in front of the visitor center sign there. And the locations of all of them, but maybe you want to just sort of talk about, I think it's just maybe a little bit more powerful to see the visual about some of these changes you were talking about.
Definitely. Yeah. So the first picture is it shows a lot of the forest, and it's mostly chose this photo because it's the same tree, I think, hopefully something similar to it at least. And so that was interesting to see that. This one didn't show as much change, but it showed how the forest had remained the same almost throughout those 27 years.
And I think the caption says something about maybe some aspen forest.
Yeah, it's hard to see, I think, in the new photo, but you can sort of see there is like more aspen in the background growing rather than just pines.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is one of those challenges, right? Is the lighting is different, because if you're thinking, I mean, you've got the same place, but did you get the same type of day, the same weather conditions? That
Mhm.
all of those factors can change a little bit what the photo looks like.
Definitely. With this photo, you can see the bark beetle starting to occur in the original photos. And then you can also see in the current new photo, there was a fire that went through there, but there was also logging that had started to occur through this area. So you can't really see the bark beetle in the current photo, but in the original, you can see that bark beetle damage starting to occur.
And I mean, these pictures are really small because they're reduced down to the website. But if you go look at it and blow it up a little bit, you see like the rust color, the brown color in the trees, and that's what the bark beetle damage looks like.
And there's a question in the chat. We can maybe go up to the map, back up to the map minute, but from Lynn, what area or distance did you cover for this? Because I think this is a screenshot from the globe visualization system that does have a scale on it, but this particular screenshot doesn't have a scale. So how much distance did you cover?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure the exact distance. It was a lot. That was probably, I'm not 100% sure. I left the forest on some of them towards the bottom in the south side. And I was near Zion, probably closer to that area. And then I was started heading towards like Panguitch and Parowan, more up north. So I got fairly far north.
We might have to go, we could go into the viz system and find this. It's in Utah, so we can figure that out, Lynn, how big the forest is geographically. So let's see. So we had these, and then the next one's down.
These ones, also the original, you can start to see the bark beetle a little bit starting to show. And then on the one to the right is the current, or the one from that I took. And that one, you could see that logging had been done through that, and it had sparsed out the pines a lot. And there was also a lot of dead pines as well. And then this is a picture of Duck Creek Village. It's sort of like in the middle of all the forest. And there was a lot of development that started to happen on that far hillside. You can sort of see that on the left side of the original photo. That's where the majority of the development was occurring. And then in the lower bottom photo, you can start to see that it started to migrate to the left.
And I was actually curious about this one. So this is in the forest. Is this like rental cabins? What is this development that's being shown here? Or is this a city or a town outside of the forest?
It's a town that's like in the middle of the forest. So it's its own city, but it's surrounded all by forest land. So as you're driving through the forest, if you're on Highway 14, you'll probably drive right by it or right through it.
Yeah, Kristen, this is Nancy Brunswick, and there are quite a few private inholdings within the National Forest on the Cedar City Ranger District, and this is one of those. So there's actually about, at one time there was about, probably more now, but there are about 3,500 private landowners within the National Forest on private lands.
Yeah, that's
Nancy,
interesting.
do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm actually on my phone. I'm headed to Salt Lake for something tonight, so I just pulled over and I'm calling in from here. But anyway, I'm Nancy Brunswick, and I was the original brainchild. This project was my brainchild. I was responsible for the photographs originally 27 years ago, and just when I saw an presentation by Kristen in the Globe Observer Group, I just saw a real amazing opportunity to do repeat photography because there have been a lot of changes in 27 years. So
Thank you. I'm glad you could join us from the road.
And I see a quick internet search says that Dixie National Forest is 2 million acres and stretches for about 170 miles across southern Utah. So I think, Lynn, that gives you a little bit of a sense of the how far the photos on the map. So you covered it. It seems like you probably covered quite a few miles, Callie.
It took a while, but we made it. Yeah, there's quite a bit of driving.
And I
All
think
right.
there's at least, oh, and so I guess that we don't have another, we have, don't have more comparison photos, but we have, but we have these fun photos.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
these are my parents, Jeff and Jackie Davis. They're the ones who originally took the photos for Nancy. Yeah, and I got to continue their little legacy of it.
One thing I was going to ask you is maybe you and Jackie and your mom, how did your experience differ from your parents?
It's a great question. I know I don't want to answer for my mom. I'll let her do that. I think she's on.
Yeah, she is.
Do you want to go first, Callie? You're good.
Sure.
Sorry,
Yeah,
there.
So for my experience, she had my dad. So I was doing it by myself, which was I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun and it was really cool just to see it was cool to see their photos and how it had changed and how it had remained the same. I think that was the coolest thing for me to be able to recreate them and sort of it was like a fun little puzzle too, like trying to figure out where the points were and like matching photos up and stuff and trying to get it to align.
So Jacqueline or Jackie, I don't know which one you prefer these days.
Either's
How was
great.
how was your experience? I mean, what was it like for you to go do the original survey?
It was different from what Callie was doing. We Nancy, like she says, she's the brainchild of all of these projects. And so when Nancy hired us, we were actually working on the scenery management system for the forest. And so we had to go through and inventory the scenery as far as we'd have to, give it grading and tell how unique or how common the landscape was. So each of our spots were when we would break it into like areas that were similar visually. And so it took a long time because we do a point at the top of the site, middle of the site, and bottom at the site. And I think we took just a picture in the middle. That was in to kind of give a general picture. And so doing that, it took a long, long time because we were writing a lot. So it wasn't so much the pictures, and we had no idea that this would come back in 27 years to anything. So it's pretty cool to go back and see that. And then Callie was really skilled at finding our spots. Back when we did these, I mean, you look at the pictures, they were actually like on a camera. We would have to go every week and get the film developed and then go through the pictures and hope they were good pictures. And so for her to be able to put these together, kind of archaic things, it was pretty cool to see. And then GPSs at that time, we kind of laugh. They were the big chunky ones and, trying to just figure out how to work that GPS. And then everybody now has a phone and they can do it. And she was able to get very close or, right on those points, which just amazed me that you could go back and just perfect that technology so many years. We've just come a long way, and it was really cool to see it continue on and everything that has changed and everything that has stayed the same.
Thank you. Nancy, that brings up a question for me, for you. Just, going from the survey Jackie took to the survey Callie took, there's a big chunk of work in the middle. It wasn't just, we're going to go look at these pictures and then go recreate them. You guys had to do a lot in between. Do you want to tell folks a little bit about what the steps were between the two surveys?
Yeah, I mean, we had the original, like Jackie said, the original photographs were all photographs. They were paper photographs, photographic prints. And all the surveys were on paper. We did have the GPS points, which nobody could remember where they'd gone. So we had them. It turned out they were on our GIS database, but it took some major sleuthing to find the original points. But and the pandemic actually helped us in a strange sort of way. We had some front desk folks who weren't greeting visitors at the front desk, so they were available to scan thousands of photographs, which they appreciated, and thousands of hundreds of surveys, and then like I said, once we actually had the points, it made it possible for uh, Callie to go back out and retake the photographs. This is just one of 5 districts, so we still have.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we'll be able to continue on with additional districts. We also want to try to use the Globe Observer app. They have kind of a reverse engineered citizen science. So hopefully we can send people out to help us to take photographs that are interested in helping. But we're hoping to use this for research to be able to document some of the changes, because there have been some pretty substantial landscape changes through the years. But we had to put all of that together to be able to do this project. And it was just a happy coincidence that Callie was looking for an internship about the time we got all these pieces put together.
Well, yeah,
I love
because I'm trying to remember, Nancy. I think it was the conference was in maybe 2019.
Right
I
before
think it was 2019 that we met and first talked about it. And then, of course, the pandemic interrupted some things, but gave some opportunities for other things. We did some initial photos back, I think, back that year. But it's been a process even in the last few years to get to the point to Callie recreating these photos.
Yeah, and it was when we tried it originally, we hadn't found the point yet. So we had another intern just driving around with photos trying to figure out where they'd been taken. Helped a lot to have the GPS points.
Yeah. Yes. So you alluded to research that you were hoping to accomplish with these change pairs, the old photos and the new ones. Can you tell us a little bit more about the type of research that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, we're just looking at changes in climate, changes in weather patterns, a lot of the things that are happening on the Dixie, the bark beetle epidemic. A lot of it has to do with warmer nights in the wintertime.
Mm.
What normally happens is bark beetles are endemic in the national forest anyway. They're there all the time. But in the past, if you have really extreme extreme cold snaps in the fall and in the spring, what they do is they fly into the bark, they lay their eggs. The eggs eat the cambium layer. They burrow down. They get below the snow level, and they hide there for the winter. Well, what happens if you have the extreme cold snaps before they've made their way down under the snow, it kills a lot of the bark beetles, so it kind of keeps it at a low endemic level all the time. Well, we're not having those cold snaps in the spring and the fall anymore, and so the bark beetles are able to work their way down the cambium layer and be successful in working their way back up in the spring and emerging and flying and infesting other trees.
Right.
So we've
Right.
lost like almost 95% or something like that of all of the mature spruce on the Ponsagat Plateau.
Wow, that's stunning.
Yeah, and that's kind of like even that one photograph that it's a little difficult to see on screen, but where there's more aspen, part of the reason there's more aspen is because we lost a substantial amount of the Engelmann spruce on the forest, so we're getting more aspen in the ground, um,
Wow.
that's not really a bad thing, but there's a lot of changes like that it's just interesting to be able to document where
Mhm.
and how substantial it is. So
Mhm. Mhm. Any more questions from folks online? I mean, I could ask a dozen more at least, so I can keep going, but I want to make sure that the rest of the audience has a chance to chime in if you have questions.
I haven't seen any more come into the chat, but something I'm curious about, Callie, because we talked about this as an internship. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're studying and how this internship might relate to things you're doing or things you hope to do with the career in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm studying landscape architecture and environmental planning at Utah State University. I'm a sophomore up there right now. I'm hoping to take what I've learned from this internship with the view sheds and different things like that, and to apply it to being able to design spaces in the future that involve restoration of different areas and stuff like that.
That is so fascinating. Like, it didn't even, I mean, of course, that's a career in a field, but that's one that I just wasn't aware of existing. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have thought of landscape architecture being related to natural areas like forests, but pairing
Exactly.
it with the environmental management, I agree. That's a really interesting combination.
Mm-hmm. What interested you in that?
So both my parents majored in the same degree. Following in their footsteps. No, but I've always loved the environment. I've always loved being outdoors and in nature. And this was an opportunity to combine that joy of being outside in nature and the love of like designing and art, and to be able to create those spaces and to restore different areas as well.
Yeah. Well, I know I've already commented on it, but I really enjoyed looking through the photos. It's like I got a virtual trip through the forest with you.
Hey, could I jump in for a second?
Please do.
So like Callie was saying, she's studying landscape architecture and environmental planning. Nancy was actually the first one. We've all gone to Utah State and studied landscape architecture and environmental planning. So all of these were landscape architecture projects, everybody that was involved in it. So that's pretty cool.
So Jackie, I'm curious, you studied this and your husband studied this. What did you guys end up doing with your degrees? Or did you go like in a totally different direction? Because that happens.
You know, we actually went more into the environmental section as opposed to the designing section. We were involved in environmental planning, like large scale environmental planning for large companies, large transmission lines and things. So we, NEPA process type things. So we actually ended up more in the environmental than the design area.
Yeah. It's just, it seems like a very versatile field. Any other questions?
So there's a question in the chat from Kelly, who had commented that she had the pleasure of visiting Zion Bryce and driving through Duck Creek community last year, but also then noted that she works for Mojave County Library, and I'm wondering how to have a display or a program to show this information to the public, or any ideas for the public to enjoy this. Now it looks like, I was just trying to look that up, so it looks like Mojave or Mojave County is Arizona, so not. So wouldn't I guess it's a question, and I guess maybe this is a question for Kelly. Are you thinking about these photos specifically from Dixie National Forest, or are you thinking about something similar, incorporating photos from your more local area? Okay, so lots of people that are snowbirds who are coming for Arizona for the winter. So I guess I mean, Callie, if you have thoughts, I think there's a few thoughts that I would have. Is that absolutely the Globe Observer app is available. If you have people who are interested, we'd love to work with you to get some more information about Globe Observer to your patrons, to be able to do observations. But I think, well, I think these photos I think are fascinating, but they are very local based. So it would be great if there were a way to see if we could find some historic photos that would be closer to your area that might be able to recreate. I think it could be very interesting. I think a display of these, basically what Callie was talking about in the blog and describing now, is the picture side by side and describing the changes. I think people will find that interesting, but I think it would be more interesting if it's things that are actually near you. So that's something we could absolutely talk about a little bit more offline, because I think that would be a really powerful display, and then showing changes over time, but then also encouraging people to go out and use Globe Observer to take observations around the library or elsewhere. So okay, so it looks like Kelly did participate in the solar eclipse last year.
Right. And so you're probably aware we do have a guide for libraries. I know it sounds like you used the Eclipse guide already, but there's additional material on the land cover mapping in the general guide if you wanted to look at that. But we'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation like we did with Nancy to begin with about, how you might adapt this for this project for your local area. And then with Nancy's permission, I have no problem sharing the photo pairs. The globe photos are in a free and open database, so you're welcome to any of those. And if Nancy is agreeable, we can send over the full resolution versions of the old photos, just if you wanted to use that as a starting point for a display about change and some of the types of change that are occurring in Western forests, because Southern Utah forest and Arizona mountain forests have some commonalities. Right, we have a couple minutes left.
I just noticed Jeff's on the phone too now. If you want to ask him any questions, he was part of the survey, the original survey.
Sure, Jeff, welcome. We had been talking earlier about how Callie's experience was different from yours, and I know you didn't get to hear what Jackie said, but would you like to comment on your survey experience in any way?
I apologize. I just landed. I've been in a plane, so I've missed everything. But our experience was it was just really a pleasure to work with Nancy and to be able to visit every corner of the Dixie National Forest and sort of document what we were observing. And then it was fun to see some of Callie's photos and her findings. And it was fascinating how things have changed over time. So yeah, it was great.
That's great. Just make sure there's nothing else in the chat before I ask my last question. Okay, I have two things. First of all, our project evaluator, who assesses how effective these events are for reaching our community, created a survey for this event. And so, Matt, would you mind putting that link in the chat? I can go find it too if you're not able to, but I think I saw Matt on.
I have to open the program, but I will be right there.
Okay, perfect. And while you're working on that, I had one last question for Nancy. You had mentioned wanting to involve more people as citizen scientists. And so I was hoping you could tell us, how you see citizen science helping you with this mapping project going forward, or mapping projects like this in general. Do you still have Nancy?
Oh. Yeah, Nancy, we're not hearing you if you're. Yeah, she.
Okay. A little bit of an echo, but I really am excited about the idea of doing more projects like this. I love the idea of being able to adapt the tools we have for your needs to serve, to benefit the community that you're in. So if this is something you're interested in, Kristen put my email and her email in the chat there, and we would love to have additional conversations. This has been such an inspiring project. I have absolutely loved seeing how it's developed over the last few years, and especially seeing some of the results coming back this summer has been so exciting. So thank you for your work. Thank you for being here tonight. Matt did put our survey link in the chat. So if you don't mind going in and taking the survey, it will only take a short amount of time.
Just a quick note, so it might be very short.
Right.
If you don't answer the first question about being associated with a certain group, then they'll bring you to the end, and we appreciate you at least giving it a go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Stay posted for our next Globe Observer Connect. You can find information about it on our website, observer.globe.gov/go/connect. That's always the URL for these events. So, check back with us. We will let you know when the next one is. We have a few possibilities lined up I'm hoping we'll be able to have a conversation in January about AI and Globe Observer. So that's what we're trying to get lined up for you. But if we don't have it in January, it will be very soon. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you again, Callie and Nancy and Jackie and Jeff. We really appreciate all of your time.